photos are our scatological cartoons and our depictions of hippie culture. Political conservatives didn't like our stand on racial equality, women's liberation, gay liberation, our support of the Vietnamese resistance against American imperialism. And of course, as a result of making such powerful enemies, the bird faced frequent harassment. We were banned in Savannah and Macon. Governor Lester Maddox banned bird vending machines at the state capitol. Some high school students and even some college students were suspended for bringing the paper to school. Our street sellers were busted for panhandling, obstructing traffic, selling without a permit, and other kinds of trumped-up charges. The bird was charged at various times with obscenity and inciting to riot. We endured politically motivated building and fire inspections, and the post office refused to mail one of our issues, which had an ad for an abortion clinic. But because of vigorous help from the ACLU and other progressive lawyers, and also because we had strong support in the community, the bird never lost a case in court, overcame all these things. Our most serious setbacks were losing our first printer, the DeKalb New Era, who gave up printing the bird because of political pressures in DeKalb County. We had to print the next few issues in New Orleans, and then we found a printer in Montgomery, and it was a good while before we found another local printer. And our greatest attack on the bird was in 1972, when the bird office was firebombed. But despite all these obstacles, the bird persevered and never missed an issue, not even after the firebomb. The New Georgia Encyclopedia says about the bird, during its 8-year existence, great speckled bird symbolized and spoke for the New Left and counterculture in Georgia and the Deep South. It maintains a place of significance in the story of America's underground newspapers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And we thank the Decatur Book Festival especially for putting this panel together. We're happy to be here, especially with such strong roots in DeKalb County. It's nice to be honored in this way after so many years of the long ago harassment from DeKalb County. Again, I'm Krista Brewer, for those of you who came in late. I am on this panel because I started working for the Great Speckled Bird in late 1973. So I am sort of a continuation of the bird that Bob was describing. I came back from, I had not been politically active at all. I had traveled around the United States in a Volkswagen bus for 4 months and came back and didn't know what I was going to do, and I picked up a copy of the Bird and I saw this little tiny ad that said, wanted local news reporter. And I said, oh, I was a news reporter for my high school paper. Maybe I could do this. And I went and was interviewed by the collective of 12 people at that time in a big living room, and they hired me. So we got started. There were a lot of things that were changing around at the Bird. It had been firebombed. They were in difficult financial shape. The street hawkers and the hippie community around what we call the Strip was beginning to dissipate. Either they had to go off and find jobs, or they were driven off by the political power structure of the city of Atlanta. So that was our distribution system as I was coming on the Bird. So the people right before me bought some vending boxes as a way to have a better distribution system. And they also thought about having more emphasis on local news and toning down some of the more strident language and photographs and attacks that had made the bird really famous. And so that's the bird that I came into. But we always stayed very true to the anti-establishment, anti-capitalism, pro-civil rights, pro-women, all those principles that the Great Speckled Bird started on. I felt like we really very clearly carried on with those. And Atlanta was also changing. I mentioned the demise of the Strip and the hippie community. The Vietnam War was winding down. So the civil rights movement was changing. It was moving more into the Black Power era. We had a new city charter in the city of Atlanta, which moved from citywide elections to district elections. This gave neighborhoods a lot more power within the city. We elected our first African-American mayor, who had been vice mayor, Maynard Jackson. So I and John Jacobs were the two local news reporters, and he and I worked very closely with Bill Cutler, who worked for the Atlanta Voice, and Boyd Lewis, who worked for, at a time, the Voice and also the Atlanta Inquirer. And the Voice and the Inquirer were two African-American-owned newspapers. So the four of us were kind of a cadre that ran around Atlanta and going to the city council meetings and interviewing different people. And we had a lot of fun. We felt like we were really bold. We felt like we were stabbing at the establishment and telling the truth that needed to be told. I wrote articles on, one of my early ones was on the King March, and we billed it, or they were billing it, as a march for jobs. There was an article that I wrote on the development of land around MARTA. When MARTA stations were built, MARTA bought extra land for development, and there was a lot of controversy around that. There were a lot of articles on city government issues, zoning, police misconduct, and then the usual women's issues. I wrote an article really late on the Equal Rights Amendment. And all through all of this, we felt like we had a certain level of respect among elected officials, among the downtown business community, which at that time were even more powerful than they seem to be now. And they gave us this, they would return our phone calls, they would set up interviews with us. And it was an interesting dynamic. They sort of thought we were cool. And so they said, oh yeah, we read The Great Speckled Bird. Yeah, a great article you had in The Great Speckled Bird. And so we always wondered about their level of real commitment to what we were talking about. But all through this, we continued our what you refer to as the gauzy idealism. We were very strongly committed to what we could call advocacy journalism. We never pretended to be objective. We tried our best to be factually correct, but we never pretended to be objective. And we maintained that the mainstream media was not objective either. They had been and still